Hello and welcome back to the Matchbook Weekend Football Podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Hussey. Just the three of us this week. I'm joined by the OG crew of Clarke and Mark O'Hare to take you through what is a busy weekend in the Premier League, and it is going to get busier on the football calendar as we get going. Before we get started, I do want to point your way in the direction of our new sign-up offer at the moment, or a sign-up offer that we have carried over from the World Cup. We're going to keep it going to the end of April, and that's double the odds on podcast bets. So these guys have been hitting the crossbar and then getting some winners on the best bets. But it's double the odds on podcast best bets, up to £50 in cash. So pick Adrian or Mark's best bet, which will be up on Matchbook Insights as well. And you'll get double the odds on your podcast best bets. So before we get into what games we're going to be covering, if you are watching the YouTube stream and you do want to get involved with the show, do comment on the YouTube video. Even if you're listening on the podcast, you've got a chance to win a £25 free bet. So any feedback for the show, share with us your best bets. We do read all the comments. We do reply to them all. And one winner will be picked on random on Monday. And you'll get a £25 free bet in your Matchbook account. That's for new and existing customers as well. We do want to include the existing customers because I know a lot of you guys,
if they say nice things, Daniel.
Yeah, well, I said all feedback, Adrian, because we're always constantly learning on the podcast.
So in theory, someone could absolutely batter me, and they'll get 25 quid for it.
It is a random number generator. I do, so unfortunately, that is quite a high possibility now. If they're very mean, I might take it down on the site for the competition. But Adrian, it's there with our T's and C's. But no, do check that out. As we said, we do want to involve the existing customers too. To chance to win a £25 free bet, because if you are listening on the podcast, we do go live on YouTube every Thursday afternoon, so sometimes the live chat can get very lively there too as well. Liverpool versus Everton, Leeds United, Palace, Brighton, Arsenal, Brentford are the four games that we picked out. We've got our EFL section, and then we've got a long shot section with Mark had a good winner in there last week, and our best bets as well. So stop me rambling on here. I'm going to go quickly into the first game, and it's Liverpool versus Everton, Monday Night Football, and we'll take a look at the betting that we currently have at matchbook.com. Currently back Liverpool at 1.56, which seems very, very short for that team at the moment. Everton 6.8 after their win last week. The draw is available at 4.5. Both teams to score. No is favoured slightly at 1.93. The Asian handicap line sees Everton get a 1-goal head start, and the total for this is 2.5, and that's shaded a good bit towards the over. Mark, I've touched on Everton a little bit and these two teams in general. You can't really side with Liverpool at this price, surely, against any team, let alone a team that had a great win last week.
No. I was quite keen to get against them last week against Wolves at Molineux. Didn't expect it to be quite so convincing. And Wolves kind of fly out the traps and put Liverpool to sleep early doors. But this is tricky for Liverpool now. I didn't get involved in the Arsenal game last week, and I kind of rued it as well, because a lot of my sort of friends got involved and backed Everton at 9-1, basically on the Sean Dyche appointment. Basically, he's a significant step up on what Frank Lampard was ever able to do, and I guess we saw what Chelsea did with Thomas Tuchel immediately after Frank Lampard was sacked, and Sean Dyche is doing similar. I know it's a one-game sample, but to see Everton just immediately improve their standards and style and system, I'm sure we all saw the running stats as well. I think they're around 3 miles more than any other game in the Premier League this season. Reverted to what seemed like a bit of a 4-5-1. Just tried to do the basics well, hard work, physicality. Filled that midfield, clogged it up really for Arsenal. Defenders who were defending and wingers who were playing as wide men and putting balls into the box. And they were resolute. They were no nonsense. Calvert-Lewin was a handful and influential. When you got a good goalkeeper behind that as well, there's a blueprint to work well. And then there's a set pieces as well, which was caused Arsenal plenty of problems, and that's where the goal came from too. So they'll fancy their chances of almost replicating that game plan away at Liverpool at Anfield. They won't be intimidated by Liverpool in the current guise. If they've done it to Arsenal, why can't they do it just down the road against Liverpool? They must see this as an opportunity, and I think that result last week will give them just bags and bags of confidence and belief. And you sort of talk about Liverpool and you look at that price, regardless of who they're playing in the Premier League, it's just off-putting. Now, earlier in the season, everyone was sort of, saying how the defence was falling apart, the midfield was unbalanced, and they've lost all sorts of intensity. But the one area of Liverpool's team which was functioning well was firstly Alisson in goal, but also the attack. They were still carving out opportunities, creating chances. They just weren't finishing those at the same level they have done in previous campaigns. But actually, that's now gone down quite significantly too. So almost both boxes are falling apart, and Liverpool's top Premier League goal scorer since the World Cup break, I'm sure it's been well documented, is Leicester centre-half weak fives, which is, just a terrible sort of damning indictment of where Liverpool are right now. They've only scored 1 goal in their last 4 games. They've lost 3 of those. I know they're all away from home, but even in that 0-0 draw against Chelsea at Anfield, they were thoroughly uninspiring. So, no Van Dijk, no Canate. I think Van Dijk has an outside chance of being available for this, but they conceded the same number of goals in the Premier League as Everton this season. Everything you kind of look at with Liverpool it screams kind of, I just want to avoid them in this match. And 1.56 quotes and a 1-goal Asian handicap start is quite significant in Premier League terms. So yeah, Everton immediately appeal on the handicap. You can back Everton plus 1.25. Just squeeze a bit more out the handicap at 1.76. It means if Liverpool do win by exactly 1 goal, we still make a half stakes profit, which is really quite attractive. And Liverpool have only won by 2 goals or more in the Premier League 3 times this season, which is, again, just remarkable considering this team was being so relentless and so consistent in previous campaigns. And that Everton have been ranked for a long, long time away from home. But I think we have to start treating them slightly differently. I know it's a 1-game sample, but we've seen what Dyche has been able to achieve with Burnley on less resources. And I think he does have the framework to be successful at Everton.
Yeah, Adrian. So that's Everton plus 1.25 goal at 1.76. You are in agreement, Adrian. I've been watching a lot of Sean Dyche propaganda over the last week or so, and I'm fully on board with this selection, to be honest.
Yeah, it's the one that stood out to me as well. I think that the fact that Liverpool are in such bad form, it's hard to fancy them. It's certainly hard to fancy them beating Everton by 2 goals or more. As Mark rightly said, only 3 times this season it's happened. The 2 occasions it's happened at Anfield were against Bournemouth and Southampton, who are really, really struggling this season. Everyone else that's come to Anfield has been involved in a very, very tight game. And I'm convinced that Everton can make this really tight. And that the nature of their win against Arsenal will give them so much more belief. I thought it was one of the best tactical performances of the season so far, not just from a new manager, but just full stop. And the fact that he had just a few days to get the team into shape, the organisation of that formation, the 4-5-1, the work rate, the application, and then of course the ingenuity of the set pieces was just phenomenal in my opinion. Arsenal didn't play well, but they weren't dreadful in the game. Watched it a second time. They were 6 out of 10. It was nothing worse than that. But Everton raised their game to a level we haven't seen in a long, long time. Now, can they do that again in the Merseyside derby? I think they can. And if they do, against this Liverpool side that aren't scoring at the moment, that look at absolute shambles at the back, then you would have to give them a chance. Definite chance. I mean, look at the midfield. For so long, the weak link of Liverpool, I think that's recognised. Well, Everton's midfield last weekend were phenomenal, I thought. Onana, Doucouré and Idrissa Gueye, 3 athletic, hard-working players. I mean, they could do what they did to Arsenal against Liverpool, in my opinion. So, yeah, Everton on the handicap is a good shout, I think. Doesn't mean it's guaranteed, of course. It's Liverpool away, but you can't get on board with Liverpool, not at the moment.
Yeah, and he does give you that security on the game if Liverpool do eventually win, perhaps by a goal. So that's Everton 1.25 for the guys. Currently on Matchbook at 1.76. Will be interesting what happens to that price close to kickoff. Mark touched on a bit of team news. If Van Dijk is fit, perhaps you could get a slightly bigger price there as well. We'll move on to the second game. This is the second marquee game that we picked out this week. It's Leeds at home to Manchester United. When have we seen that before? We'll take a look at the betting that we have at Matchbook.com. Leeds are 4.1. Manchester United are 1.98. The draw is available at 3.95. The Asian handicap lines, both teams to score yes is 1.65. The Asian handicap line sees Leeds get a half a goal start at 1.97. And the total is 3 goals. And that's slightly shaded a good bit towards the under, given the high total. So, Adrian, I'll ask you a simple question. When you have a recent sample, do you enjoy having that so you can just watch the game, make your judgment then for a 3-day turnaround? Or is it just maybe something so different that you don't really know what to make of it?
Well, yeah, look, it wasn't live on TV here in England, so I've only seen the highlights of the game, but it's wild. I mean, it's a wild, fast, frenetic game that toed and froed. I mean, in the end, Manchester United fully deserved their draw, didn't they? I mean, I think they had 24 shots on goal, creating plenty of chances. I always think when there's 2 games in quick succession, The second one is a little bit more circumspect, just because they know each other. That it's obvious. It's like a first half that goes crazy. It often peters out, doesn't it, in the second half, because the managers get hold of the players, they fix the problems, and then it becomes a lot more stale. And so that's my theory in regards to avoiding overs, which I think is an obvious call here, given that Leeds really can't defend and they're very attack minded, and that United are full of goals at the moment. I think overs is the one that most people will probably look at, but because of the it's a quick turnaround, I'm a bit reticent to go with that. What I prefer is Manchester United here in the game. I think obviously their comeback will have given them a bit of belief. It would have knocked Leeds for sure. They remain in limbo, don't they? I think Iraola, the manager of Vallecano, has turned them down. He was the one that they wanted by all accounts. But yes, they're still in limbo. Will they get a manager out of a current position, or will they take someone who's out of work? For me, Hasenhüttl looks someone that would be suited to the Leeds style and the players that he's got, in my opinion. And he could be someone that can get in fast. So we'll have to wait and see if they go down that route. But yeah, Manchester United, I think they've scored a lot of goals. I think they've scored at least 2 in 6 of their last 8 games. The last time they failed to score on the road was Brentford away back in August. So they're always worth a few goals on their travels. And Leeds just can't defend, can they? They just can't. And I don't expect them to be able to hold Manchester United in this match. So yeah, I'm going to go for an away win. It'll be interesting to see whether Weghorst keeps his place, taken off again in the game. And once Sancho came on and Rashford went down the middle, they were much better, Manchester United. So that might be how they line up from kickoff in the game. But yeah, I got to back Manchester United, who are still on a really, really good run. Leeds are scrambling, aren't they? They're just not winning games.
Yeah, Mark, that price did stand out to me a little bit at 1.98. I expected United to be a touch shorter. I know Casemiro is missing, but it did seem quite big on first glance.
Yeah, I think I probably have been a bit too drawn in by what happened on Wednesday night. I managed to catch the game, and yeah, it was chaotic.
Do you mind me asking how you could possibly watch it, Mark? Because it wasn't available on UK TV.
He's got a huge satellite, hasn't he, on the top of his roof?
Anyway, so yeah, I mean, it was chaotic. Leeds games tend to be so, but I did my sort of prep on Tuesday or sort of late Tuesday with this match in mind, knowing that I'd had to see the game first before kind of making a strong opinion. But I was really impressed with Leeds, and I have been quite impressed by Leeds a fair bit recently, and they just haven't been getting results. The Friday night game against Aston Villa, I think, lives long in people's memories because they were absolutely outstanding. Dominated Villa at Villa Park for 89 minutes, ended up with nothing, conceded early on, never really recovered from that. And they're making sloppy errors defensively, but going forward, they add so much. And even the first half against Forest last week, they were brilliant, really. And yeah, I guess before Wednesday night's match, I would have been pro United, but I guess watching the game, you just realise how big an influence Casemiro is in that midfield. And it's not just him either. It's Christian Eriksen too. Two massive figures in that United midfield. And I thought Tyler Adams and Weston McKennie, the 2 American boys, were absolutely fantastic. And they sort of set the tone from the first whistle, really, just hassling, harrying, pressing. Whether United were complacent or didn't quite expect Leeds to play such front foot football from the off, yeah, they just struggled to really control the contest, particularly in that first half, and understandably so. They came roaring back in the second half to try and play catch up, really, and Leeds kind of lost their way a little bit. But Leeds did lose Sinisterra and Struijk early on as well, so they had to reshuffle, bring players off the bench, but they just thrived in the atmosphere. And if there's one game that Leeds fans will get up for, it's absolutely Man United at Ellen Road. So it's going to be lively. It's going to be feisty. There'll be a terrific atmosphere. No Rodrigo, which is a big blow, but the fact that Patrick Bamford is fit and available, leading the line and playing reasonably well is a huge bonus. Nonto has just been superb, gave Dallo a really tough workout on Wednesday. Harrison, just busy and industrious as ever. Somerville played very well when he came on too. So Leeds do have quality. And I do expect them to put United under pressure because if there's, this is a United team about 2 of their midfield stars. which is a massive area of their strength so far this season. And also, I'd say that away from home, perhaps United haven't been quite so flawless as we've seen at Old Trafford for the most part of the campaign too. So I think Leeds will be absolutely buoyed by what happened in midweek, despite not getting the result. Home to United in front of that crowd, they should be well up for this. I fancy them getting on the score sheet, and then you always fancy United to contribute, because you can't guarantee Leeds will ever keep anyone to one goal, let alone two. And Bruno and Rashford are in fantastic form. So I see both sides scoring, and therefore brings into play the overs. So it is a high line. Maybe I'm being a bit too seduced by what I saw on Wednesday, but expecting something similar, to be honest, because Leeds just deal in chaos and tend to thrive in it most times. And I think there'll be absolutely loads of chaos. The fact it's at Ellen Road, it's their game of the season, really. So expecting a really sort of feisty front foot approach.
Yeah, comments in the live chat maybe has sealed the deal here. Both teams really need to win it. Like, if United have any sort of chance in a Premier League title race, they definitely probably need to beat Leeds away, and Leeds definitely need to get out of the relegation zone. So that could add to the chaos, Mark. So, well, I like that in the first half theory, Adrian. I am going to side with Mark here on the over 2 3/4 goals.
Absolute disgrace. And Ten Hag is a really good coach, and I just think he would have been very unhappy with the way that his team started that game, and that he will adjust things accordingly, mentally and tactically, from his players. But Mark makes a good case that the midfield is not as stable without Casemiro. We know that. So no, I'll take that one on the chin.
And go again in the next game. But so all bets put up for both Adrian and Mark will be available on insights.matchbook.com. We will throw a lot of bets at you guys. We'll move on to the third game. One of the biggest derbies in the Premier League. It's Crystal Palace at home to Brighton. Saturday, 3 o'clock kickoff. Wasn't picked for TV, which is surprising for a massive derby. We'll take a look at the betting. Palace are available at 4.0. Brighton are 2.08. Very short, despite Brighton's great record recently. Draws available at 3.6. Both teams to score yes is 10 to 11 or 1.91 on the Matchbook Betting Exchange. And Palace can be backed at half a goal start on the Asian handicap at 1.9, with the total goals being at 2.5. And slightly shade towards the under. Mark, this was your game of choice, and you're kind of coming into it. Look, Palace have not been able to score recently. Brighton look unbelievable, especially going forward. So you've landed on the overs in the end.
Yeah, just because it's a slightly bigger price than Brighton to win. And the fact that Brighton are trading around 2.08 to win the game just feels tight, especially so being this a big rivalry fixture. They have been one of the form teams since the World Cup break. Only United and Brentford have earned more points than Brighton, but the form has been noticed by the layers, as you can see by that price. Selhurst Park is still a tricky place to go, especially if you're playing in such a big game as this. And it's all borne out in the data. Brighton certainly are performing superbly well. They might have only beaten Bournemouth 1-0 last week, but they created over 2.5 expected goals, 14 shots in the box. Undav missed a good opportunity on his first start. Welbeck had to go off injured. Ferguson missed out, but he's potentially due back this week. McAllister's back from suspension. Lallana's available again, so they will be stronger for that. So I can absolutely see why Brighton would be favoured, because Palace have been absolutely appalling for quite some time now. 5 points from 7 since the break, 4 goals, none of which have come from open play. You have to go back to the 6th of November, the last time Palace scored a goal from open play in the Premier League, which is pretty damning stuff. And in those 8 games, they're averaging around 0.38 expected goals from open play and 6.25 shots in the box, which is absolutely dismal stuff. Really quite peculiar, considering how many quality forward players and inventive players they have at their disposal. But yeah, I just think whilst Palace are in a poor run of form, getting a home game against Brighton should, in theory, raise spirits, raise morale. It's a game to look forward to, a game to sort of savour, as we're talking about Leeds United. Palace fans will be up for this game, and so should the players too. So, Brighton are heavily favoured, understandably so, but I also think they're just a little bit too short to sort of trust at those kind of prices, because they do give you a chance. They've conceded at least 1 expected goal, or 1+ expected goal in their last 10. They're averaging 1.51 XG against in that 10-game sample. So, just to see Crystal Palace contribute to the score sheet here, it wouldn't be a huge surprise the way in which Brighton play. So I just thought over 2.5 goals at a slightly bigger price than Brighton to win is more appealing. The last 10 Brighton games, overs has landed in 9 of them, and they've won 7 of them. So it's actually got a better hit rate. Those 10 games are averaging 3.7 goals per game. Absolutely expect them to score at Selhurst Park because that's the way they play. But you would not discount Palace getting on the score sheet too, and then you just require a third goal. So Brighton are scoring bags of goals at the minute, so they could easily cover this line themselves. It wouldn't be the biggest shock if they went to Palace and won 3-0. But I just think because of the rivalry, the price has been inflated on overs, but it also should raise Palace's spirits too.
Interesting. The play there is the overs for Mark. Adrian, just a little bit on Patrick Vieira. Would you be a tad concerned at their recent form because he brought everyone along with Crystal Palace in the first season? I personally thought they would get hit with second season syndrome, but they started the season relatively well. But it's just in the last 7, 8, 9 games, before the winter break and after the winter break, they seem to be kind of moving back slowly towards that relegation zone.
Yeah, no, it's not gone well. It's not been a good season for them. I was so impressed with them last year. Watched them in the flesh a few times, and I thought tactically they were superb, really difficult to play against, and they've regressed from that, I think. And they're not keeping very many clean sheets. They're certainly not full of goals. So no, Crystal Palace, they've gone backwards, I think, over the last 12 months. That's not to say that Patrick Vieira needs to go or anything like that, but I think he needs a little bit of a reboot in that team. He needs to extract a touch more out of them. But no Zaha this weekend, but he's still got plenty of attacking, armory up his sleeve.
Yeah, it's one of those games where you can see plenty of goals, perhaps. I'm going to lock in Mark's pick on the over side of things. But
whoa. I haven't even put my case across yet.
Oh, sorry, I thought that was a pause. Sorry.
No. I was just answering your question. Sorry. Both teams to score.
You caught me off guard, Adrian. You caught me off guard.
Both teams to score is my pick, right? And I'll tell you why. Look, Mark's covered the overs very eloquently. Obviously, both teams to score gets 1-1 on side. And I think it's not an unrealistic scoreline, 1 apiece. Look, 8 out of 10 Brighton away games. Both teams have scored. 6 of 11 Palace home games. Both teams have scored. Palace don't keep clean sheets. 5 out of 21 this season. Only 2 clean sheets at Selhurst Park out of 11 home games. So the case for Brighton scoring is really strong because they're flying. They're very attack-minded, and Palace have been a little bit leaky. But Brighton are not watertight at all. Even though they've scored in all but 1 away game, going forward, not a problem. 1 clean sheet in 10 matches on the road this season for Brighton. 9 times out of 10 they've conceded, and I think with a pumped up Selhurst Park crowd, the players will be roared on to give them a few difficult moments. So definitely think that we'll see both teams score in this game. I mean, the stats tell you that, and I think the sort of game state with Palace being desperate for the points, Brighton being kind of desperate to beat their rivals, I think this could be a really good game where both teams find the back of the net. Yeah,
I know I was slagging the derby off earlier, but the atmosphere will be electric in Selhurst Park.
And the fixture, by the way, I looked at the history of the fixture. 8 of the last 9 meetings, both teams have scored in this so-called derby.
Yeah. No, I remember Mopey celebrating last minute on a Monday night football game, for example. So the games do kind of live up to the billing. So we're locking overs on Mark with that one at 2.11. The both teams to score is there for an option and does bring the 1-1 into play as well, which I think has been a popular scoreline with these two teams too. We'll move on to Adrian's game of choice. Surprise, surprise, it's the league leaders at home to Brentford, Saturday, 3 o'clock kickoff. We'll take a look at the betting that we currently have at matchbook.com. Arsenal nibbled in a little bit more than I last looked as well. Arsenal 1.43. Brentford out to 8.8. The draw is available at 5.1. Both teams to score. No is favoured in this market at 1.94. The Asian handicap line sees Brentford get 1.25 goal head start. That's currently available at even money or 2.0 on Matchbook. And the total is 2.5, shaded a good bit towards the over. Adrian, you described Arsenal's performance at Goodison as a 6 out of 10. A few Arsenal fans might go a little bit harsher than that, but that's the general consensus in around. We are rating it between 4, 5 and 6 out of 10. How do they respond this week?
Well, they've got to respond, haven't they? They've got to be a bit better than they were. Like I said, I didn't think it was as disastrous as some people would have you think. But it's 2 defeats in a row and 2 times that Arsenal haven't scored. Obviously, the City Cup game and then at Goodison Park. So they need a bit of a reaction. They need to lift the fans. And I think Emirates will be rocking, especially after City slipped up, which made last weekend's disappointment much more palatable, I've got to say. So yeah, they've got another chance to extend that lead at the top of the table. Brentford will be awkward opponents. I think everyone can kind of see that. They're unbeaten since the 23rd of October in the Premier League, Brentford. So they're on a really, really good run. That has to be said. And I think in that run, they've scored a lot of goals as well. They've scored 2 or more goals in 7 of 9 games, Brentford. So, they're not having any issues finding the back of the net. But this is going to be a tough game for them. Arsenal will come at them. They'll be flying. Obviously, their record at Emirates Stadium this season is pretty sensational. They've scored a lot of goals in front of their own fans. And I think it'll be difficult for the Bees to keep Arsenal at bay. They did sort of swap Brentford to one side earlier on in the season at the GTEC Stadium. I think it was 3-0. Surprisingly easy game. I think it'll be tougher than that, but I do think that Arsenal can create chances and score goals. David Raya, by the way, is the busiest keeper in the Premier League this season. So for all of the positives around Brentford, and they're up in 7th, it's amazing. It's sensational what they're doing. They do ask a lot of their keeper. They're not the most solid side. And I do think that Arsenal's forward players have the movement and sharpness to potentially get the better of people like Ben Mee and Ethan Pinnock. So my pick here is a bit of a long shot, really. It's sort of in between a normal selection and one of our long shots. It's Arsenal to win and both teams to score. Comes out at 3.4, which is a good price, especially given that 7 of Arsenal's 9 home games this season, this bet has landed. 2 clean sheets in the last 14 matches in North London, Arsenal, but they keep winning. So yeah, can you see Brentford nicking one? Yeah, can. But could I see Arsenal scoring two or 3 goals? Absolutely. So that's my pick. Arsenal, both teams to score.
Yeah, decent price, 3.4. Before we go to market, Adrian, you mentioned the GTEC Community Stadium, and that completely passed me by that they got a new sponsor this year. I've just spent the last minute looking up at what GTEC actually is. They sell vacuum cleaners. So I've sat through 4 or 5 games on Sky with Brentford at home as well. So not great for the sponsors if they're only
it's not great. Yeah, not a great one for them. But it should be a good game. It's an awkward test for Arsenal. They'll have to step it up a little bit, and I think they will.
Yeah. Mark, over to you on this one. And you've gone a little bit pro Brentford on this one. Like, in fairness, they always do raise their game against the top 6 sides in particular.
Yeah, look, I found this one particularly tough to find an angle I really wanted to hang my hat on. But I mean, Brentford are being kind of priced up as a bottom half team. And we've always said for Arsenal, when they're priced up at 1.5 or shorter at the Emirates in the Premier League, are almost a guaranteed winner because they're so consistent in this part. But Brentford aren't sort of bottom half dross. They're in the top 8 on merit. Only Arsenal and Newcastle have lost fewer Premier League matches than Brentford this season. They've lost just 4 times, which is unbelievable, really, for a club of their stature. And they've only lost twice on their travels since August as well. And the last 5 games in the Premier League, they've conceded 1 goal. They've been to the Etihad. They've won, deservedly so as well. And they're churning out some eye-catching displays going forward, as Adrian mentioned, scoring goals. So Brighton are getting all the plaudits for their sort of campaign, because they're doing it in a style, whereas Brentford are just a point worse off than Brighton, doing things in a much more sort of functional style. They're efficient, they utilise set pieces, they aren't afraid to go long and direct, well-drilled, organised, and as Adrian says, an awkward team to play against. So, very different to how Brighton approach games, but it's been working a treat for Thomas Frank. And I just thought... Arsenal need to respond after last weekend. Thomas Partey didn't look 100% fit last weekend either, so we'll see if he's back to his best self this weekend. And Everton caused Arsenal problems from set pieces. Well, you can guarantee that Brentford will try and do something similar here. So, I would not discount Brentford getting on the score sheet here. Arsenal have kept just the 2 clean sheets at the Emirates all season. They've not actually beaten any of the top half teams at home by more than a 1-goal margin either. So, I just thought as well, the Man City match is lurking in the background now for Arsenal. They can't really afford to look that far ahead. They have to focus on the here and now, which I'm sure they will do. But, it just adds an extra layer of intrigue. are they going to be distracted by that fixture or not? I presume they won't be, but yeah, just something to sort of think about really. And yeah, the 3-0 in the reverse is a kind of off-putter, but I think Brentford can be competitive in this match. I think they can get on the score sheet, and that would bring in the Brentford +1.5 handicap start as a potential runner, but it's not a really strong view by any stretch.
Okay, it's 1.76 currently on the Asian handicap line. We will lock in with Adrian because I can see Arsenal struggling time. So perhaps the 2-1, 3-1 Arsenal. Arsenal, both teams have scored 3.4. Just a quick recap on the rest of the bets in our main slate of games. Over 2.5 goals, 2.11 does seem a big price from Crystal Palace at home to Brighton. That's Saturday, 3 o'clock. The Leeds Manchester United is a Sunday 2 o'clock game. We've locked in over 2.75 goals at 1.9, and both the guys agree on Everton, the Asian handicap line at 1.25 goal. Insights.matchbook.com for a full bet recap will be available Thursday afternoon, and it's a good one on a Saturday, Sunday, or even a Monday this week if you do want to recap the bets. And we've got some interesting plays in the EFL for those that like an EFL ACCA. We've got 5 in total coming up here, 4 in this section and 1 in the best bets section too. Mark, I was very intrigued by this one. So for those that listen to the podcast, obviously Adrian, former Arsenal player, massive Arsenal fan as well. And the little known fact, and Mark has brought it up maybe once or twice in the podcast, that Mark is a big QPR fan and he's going to back against his team here. So Mark, tell us what's gone wrong over the last few weeks ever since the winter break.
Yeah, I mean, you can push it back further than that, Dan. We were top of the league on the 22nd of October, which feels like a lifetime ago. 14 games since have brought 1 win and just 9 points. We scored 7 goals in that 14-game stretch, which if you sort of looked at it in sort of proper time, it's about 21 hours worth of football, and we scored 7 goals. Performances have been pretty dire. Lyndon Dykes, our starting striker, has been in hospital. He's out now, but it's probably highly unlikely to feature this weekend. Just brought in Chris Martin, who must be about 56 these days. Can barely move around a field these days, but he's been brought in to add a bit of experience and physicality up front. Key players and forward areas have just kind of lost their touch a little bit recently too. Not won at home since October, conceded in 8 of the last 9 home games. So when I was doing my prices for the weekend, I expected this match against Millwall to be a bit of a pick-em, really. If anything, I thought Millwall could be slight favourites. I'm really surprised Rangers have been sort of chalked in as favourites to win this match, and just happy to oppose that price, really, with Millwall in great form. I know they've got injuries. They will have to shuffle their pack a little bit, but go back to the start of October, Millwall have played 17 championship games. They've only lost 3 times. They've got 8 wins in that sample. And in the last 8 away games, they've won at Cardiff, Watford, Preston and Bristol City, the majority of which you would label, or at least 3 of them would label in sort of a similar sort of style, not style, but a similar sort of ability-wise as QPR. And go back over those 17 games I talked about, they've conceded 2 goals or more in 2 of those 17. So very much defensively strong, well drilled under Gary Rowett, and just the 1 away defeat against bottom half opposition. More recently, they're top of the 4-game expected goals form table and in the top 6 over a larger sort of 12-game sample too. So they are playing well. They're getting the results. They are eyeing a sort of top 6 finish here. I just thought Millwall odds against with a +0 start, basically a draw no bet angle here is the bet to play. Rangers not in a good place. Millwall will bring a noisy mob to Loftus Road, and I think their players are in tune right now, whereas Rangers are anything but.
Yeah, and that'll be a raucous atmosphere. And look, the people that follow a club know them better than everyone. So you've heard that case from Mark, more anti-QPR than Millwall, perhaps. Just the capital letters don't really work. If we can bring that banner back, the QPR versus Millwall draw no bet. For those listening to the podcast would see, we came up with something recently. We'll put the selection in capital letters so it stands out on the banner, but Millwall is in capital letters and QPR is obviously in capital letters already. So that doesn't really stand out. So be clear, Millwall draw no bet at around 2.04. Is currently the play there. Mark, your second selection, Charlton versus Fleetwood. Both teams to score here. League One, 1.79.
Yeah, good price for basically 2 of League One's both teams to score specialists. Charlton are eyeing a late run of the playoffs. It looks unlikely because the teams above them are in good form and they've still got quite a decent chunk of points to make up. But they've won 4 of the last 5, playing some good football under Dean Holden there. They scored 10 goals in a sample of games against Bolton, Portsmouth, Barnsley and Exeter. So good opposition, scoring goals. They've scored more home goals than all but 3 League One teams this season, averaging 1.8 at home. Only failed to score twice in 15 at home and own 5 of 28 overall. And their XG outputs are also very strong at home and overall too. They're just not very trustworthy defensively. 5 clean sheets all season, 3 and 15 at home. and 1 in their last 13 league games. So naturally, that leads to a kind of glut of both teams to score games. 68% overall have ticked for BTTS and 67% at the Valley. That's 10 from 15. The hosting of Fleetwood side, who are just 2 points above the drop zone, but scoring goals. They just progressed midweek in the FA Cup by beating Sheffield Wednesday, which is a great feather in their cap. But they've scored in 22 of 28 League One games. And actually, they've scored in 13 of 14 away, which is remarkable for a team sort of battling relegation. No side has got a better sort of strike rate away from home in League One this season than Fleetwood. The only time they failed to score on the road was actually at Sheffield Wednesday, who are top of the league. But yeah, clean sheets haven't been commonplace. Just 6 all season, 3 and 14 away. So again, just kind of doing basic numbers there. You combine an attack which is scoring goals and a defence which is leaking. BTTS is common, 64% overall, but it rises to 71% when Fleetwood play away. 10 of 14 of their away games have seen both teams scoring. And I think interestingly too, if you look at the last 4 fixtures in League One, these 2 teams are in the top 2 for expected goals output too. So they are creating chances quite abundantly in recent matches too. So yeah, it should be a good game at the Valley.
Yeah, some stats backing up that selection. Charlton versus Fleetwood both seems to score 1.79. Adrian, before your selections, I saw you nodding in agreement a lot of that.
Yeah, definitely. No, it all made sense. Yeah. I would. I'd endorse both of those. I think Mill would have got a great chance at QPR, but yeah, Fleetwood and Charlton are the BTTS kings, aren't they? And it often works out that way that it will land when these teams meet each other. So yeah, makes perfect sense to me.
Yeah, let's go to your 2 selections. And our EFL guy, of course, Adrian. So no pressure after following Mark there. Sheffield United at home to Swansea. High flying Sheffield United. Billy Sharp calling out the Wrexham fans, supporters, media. I thought it was a bit much now in midweek, but do you expect them to win at home this week?
Yeah, that one passed me by, I've got to admit. But yeah, I know that they beat Wrexham in the end. It took them a while to get there, didn't it? It wasn't the most convincing performance from Sheffield United. But yeah, I mean, we've just been talking about Arsenal against Brentford, and Arsenal really, really short. What was it, 1.5s or whatever, around that area. Well, if you look at the Championship, Sheffield United are flying high in second. Swansea very much mid-table, lower than a Brentford. Yet Sheffield United are priced up at 1.94. So I think that's quite an attractive price on a home win. They've won 9 of 14 matches at Bramwell Lane in the Championship this season. They love it there. I've been to a few of them, and they're a good footballing team, Sheffield United, with excellent players. Sander Berger staying is massive for them. They've got good forwards, pretty reliable defence. Ollie Norwood is an excellent midfield player. So yeah, I think this will be a good game. Swansea are a footballing side, but there is a bit of a soft underbelly about Swansea and Russell Martin teams in general, to be perfectly honest. They don't seem to focus as much of their attention on defending and keeping the ball out of their own net. And they've only won 2 of their last 13, Swansea. They're a little bit low on morale. Got beat 4-3 at home to Birmingham last time out, even though they played quite well. So, and obviously they're in turmoil behind the scenes. I don't know if you saw it with Russell Martin brought his whole coaching staff into the press conference and had a bit of a rant at the owners for not backing him in January, which never ends well, does it?
Never
for a coach
goes,
when they put themselves out there like that. So, it's not the happiest of camps at the moment, Swansea, and I think this is a really tough game for them. Sheffield Wednesday's home record is absolutely superb, as I've outlined. So, good price on the Blades to win at home.
Okay. Yeah, it does seem that way. 1.94 currently. That could definitely see that being a popular bet on Saturday. MK Dons at home to Oxford now in League One. Adrian, both teams to score now. 1.95 is your selection. Is this a case of 2 teams struggling for different reasons that you just think it will be a cagey game ultimately?
Yeah, well, Oxford are really struggling. 4 games with no goals, 5 blanks in their last 7. Carl Robinson is under all sorts of pressure. Away from home this season, Oxford, who traditionally have been quite a good attacking side under Robinson, haven't been this year. 7 times they've failed to score in 15 games away from the Kassam Stadium. So not good travellers. And they've been involved in a lot of low-scoring matches on the road. 10 of their 15 away games have gone under 2.5 goals. So, yeah, they're used to being involved in cagey, low-scoring matches on the road. MK Dons are improving. They've got a new manager, Mark Jackson, who's sort of focusing really on the off-the-ball work, tightening them up as a team. They've got 3 clean sheets in their last 8 games, which they didn't really have any prior to his his arrival. Now, home games at Stadium MK have been pretty boring this season. 10 of 15, same number, have gone under 2.5 in front of their own fans, and they're the lowest scorers in League One at home. Just 10 goals in those 15 matches for MK Dons. So we're getting better, but they're not exactly free scoring. So and they've failed to score in 7 of 15 at home as well. So when you put it all together, it feels like an unders game. Unders is too short to back, which immediately when that happens, my eyes immediately go to BTTS now, and I hope that it's at a backable price, and it really is here. It's quite a jump from sort of 1.6-ish on the unders to just shy of even money on both teams to score no. So yeah, I can absolutely see either MK Dons or Oxford, potentially even both of them, failing to find the back of the net in this game. I don't think it's going to be a thriller.
Okay, yeah. Carl Robinson going to his former club, of course. 1.95 currently, both teams to score no. We'll head to our long shot section and go back to you, Mark, on this one, and give you props on Wolves and under 3.5 goals, just about sneaking in at 3-0 at home to Liverpool last week. So there'll be a few people having their ears pricked now for this selection. This is very, very interesting. So I'll take it away.
Yes, I'm going to back Monaco to win and both teams to score when they play PSG on Saturday afternoon. PSG were beaten by Marseille in the Coupe de France in midweek, which has kind of continued a theme of PSG playing quite poorly, actually, in the big matches that matter. They lost that cup tie, haven't impressed in home and away Champions League ties against Juventus or Benfica, and managed to win just once against the top four in Ligue 1 this season, which was a 1-0 victory against Marseille. So obviously playing on Wednesday night in Marseille in that big game with a quick turnaround to Saturday isn't ideal, particularly when they're playing such an important contest. And PSG do pride themselves on their domestic cup performances. They went with a strong side in Marseille. So that obviously eats into recovery time, preparation time. And the elephant in the room is a big match against Bayern Munich to come on Tuesday as well. So very important time for PSG. And this match against Monaco is kind of sandwiched in between those two kind of higher profile, higher priority. I can't even say the word.
We know what you mean.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, there might be changes is all I'm trying to say. They've got an 8-point advantage at the top of Ligue 1, so there's scope for them to sort of falter a little bit domestically and still be in complete control of the title race. And they don't have a great record at the Stade Louis II in league football recently. They lost here 3-0 last season, and they lost 3-2 in 2020 as well. Monaco have actually won 3, drawn 1, and lost 2 in the last 6 head-to-heads across all venues. Monaco have a free week, midweek to prepare for this, well rested, in good form right now, scoring goals. And they've already played out 1-1 draws away at PSG and Marseille. So back on home soil, I think there is scope for a bit of an upset here because PSG might be looking elsewhere.
Okay, yeah, interesting. And interesting you mentioned the Champions League as well. Monday afternoon we'll be back with our Champions League podcast, and that'll be the relentless content for you all throughout the week on the football side of things. So do check that out. The usual team of Miguel, Adrian, and Mark. And be interesting what PSG do prioritize, Mark, going forward over the next few weeks. Adrian, I'm not sitting through Monday Night Football for a 0-0 at Liverpool versus Everton, but you do think it's a big price at 14.5?
It's massive. It's a humongous price.
Actually is,
I couldn't believe it. Does nobody know that this is the one fixture in Premier League history that's had the most goalless draws? 12 in Premier League history. And there was one earlier on in the season at Goodison. And obviously we've been covering the game in detail at the top of the show, giving Everton a really good chance, talking up, their defensive organisation, mentioning that Liverpool are really, really struggling at the top end of the pitch at the moment. And yeah, for me, 0-0 is one of the most likely final scorelines in the game. That's a 14.5 all over it.
Yeah, Sean, you can just see Sean Dyche parking the bus, Liverpool not being able to.
He want to spoil this game. He want to make it horrendous to watch.
And it is one of those scorelines. If it is an hour before kickoff, you're watching the guys on Monday Night Football, do check the Matchbook Betting Exchange and those correct scorelines, because we will be best price on the odds checker grid. And onto the podcast best bets again. Reminder at the top of the show about the double the odds on these two selections here. So, Adrian, I'll let you take it away with our last EFL selection of the show.
Yes, it's all glamour this week,
Isn't
isn't it?
it?
I've gone for Rochdale at home to Northampton for the Cobblers to come out on top. It's odds against. It's price led, really, as well as form led. They've got the second best away record in League Two. Northampton Town, 25 points from 14 away games. Really powerful side that that are a nightmare to play against. They're the second top scorers on their travels as well in the division. Now, who are they up against? They're up against Rochdale, who are rock bottom of the 92 at the moment, a little bit on their knees under Jim Bentley. They haven't been all over the place. I have to say that at the moment. They've been in games, but losing them. But the issue is at home. And they've got a little bit of a phobia at home at the moment. They've lost 10 of 14 home games. Now, I put myself into the sort of mindset of those players. They're dreading this. They're dreading the game. They've lost 10 of 14 at home. You're thinking, oh my goodness, here we go again. Let's hope for something better, but you're not expecting it. And I don't think Northampton will roll over. They beat them 3-0 in the reverse fixture pretty comfortably. And Northampton have got 3 clean sheets in their last 5. They're pretty solid at the back. So yeah, when you sort of add everything up, you feel that this has the real look of an away win. One other thing to add, which could be really important, I think, in the game. Northampton are the kings of set pieces at League Two level, or have been for years. They lead the way with 13 set piece goals this season. Rochdale can't defend them. They just can't. 22 set piece concessions this season for Rochdale, which is the most by a long way. I think it's the most by 6 or 7. So, yeah, every time there's a corner or a free kick, I think the home fans will sort of have their heads in their hands. So, yeah, I'm back in Northampton here. I think the price is good.
Yeah, 2.16 Northampton, the Cobblers to beat Rochdale. Mark, we'll head over to your best bets. This is one of 2 selections on the insights.matchbook.com that Mark filed Thursday morning. Take it away on Ligue 1.
Yes, Ligue 1, France's top flight, has long had a bit of a stereotype of being kind of boring and dull and low scoring. But I think that kind of viewpoint was kind of vanquished many moons ago, because it's actually been really entertaining the last couple of years. And this season, 55% of games have gone over 2.5 goals, and matches have averaged 2.87 goals per game, which is a lofty figure, which is comparable with some of the best leagues in Europe. And in Toulouse and Rennes on Sunday, I think we've got the makings to being a really entertaining game, actually. Toulouse, newly promoted under Philippe Montagnier, former Nottingham Forest head coach, playing dynamic, progressive football, progressed in the Coupe de France in midweek, beating a strong Rams team who've been going great guns recently. They're unbeaten in 5 Ligue 1 games, had won 4 of those before going to PSG last weekend. They lost the game, but they scored. They lost 2-1, put in a very competitive display, very decent effort. But they do tend to come up short against the better teams in the league, but they still pack plenty of punch going forward. They've scored in 18 of 22 league games since winning the title of Ligue 2 last season. They've scored in 8 of 10 at home, only failed to score against Monaco and PSG here, but just the 2 clean sheets at home as well. So home matches have averaged 3.27 goals. They will take a positive approach into this match because they'll see Rennes as being beatable. A Rennes team have slipped out of contention for the top 3, which has been their big aim. They're in poor form themselves. They've come back from the World Cup break and really struggled, especially away from home, where they've played Lorient, Reims and Clermont and lost 2-1 against all 3 of them, which has kind of continued an ongoing theme, really, for Rennes away from home. They've played 10 away games in Ligue 1, and all 10 have seen both teams score. So they're putting in some dodgy defensive numbers, but they always carry plenty of threat of their own. They've scored in all bar 1 of their 22 league games. 16 of the last 20 have paid out for over 2.5 goals backers, and 16 of their 22 overall have seen both teams score as well. But if you kind of combine both teams' records in the over 2.5 goals market, you've got a 71% hit rate, and that improves to 79% from 14 combined games since the World Cup break, and 10 of those matches also featured both teams scoring as well. So I think it could be a bit of a shootout on Sunday.
Okay, yeah, I like the sound of that, to be honest. Over 2.5 goals available at 1.86. We're done. A quick reminder, if you are listening to the podcast, head over to the YouTube channel and comment anything you like. As Adrian said, we won't filter it at all. There will be a random number generator. You'd be surprised who ends up being picked from that selection. So do comment any feedback for the show in all seriousness, or even share with us your best bets, a chance to win a £25 free bet for new or existing customers at all. My thanks to Mark, my thanks to Adrian. We'll be back Monday afternoon for the Champions League. It's going to be relentless football till then. Bye-bye.